Hello knife people, out here going to do another couple reviews. This is going to be breaking up over two videos, one for the ESEE Laser Strike and the other for the Helle GT. Now the Helle is marketed as a hunting knife, but as we all know, if you grow to like an edge, and it suits your purposes, you're going to be fine. So not using an extra microphone this time, so you're going to hear a little bit more ambient. Hopefully it's nothing more than birds in the wind. You may hear an occasional backpacker or mountain biker, but that's more than okay with me. No chihuahuas, no traffic, and so I'm good to go. So the first test I'm going to do is going to be a kind of a push cut, stress cut through a sapling here, and these are actually fairly tough saplings, fairly thick. That's why I picked them. I really wanted to see what these guys could do, especially the Laser Strike, which is a heavier duty blade. But I got some thinner ones here and then some thicker ones, and I'm going to try to take them out without taking the camera out and see how well they do. So here we go. Alright, going to take a look at the Laser Strike now. Outstanding blade. I'm going to kind of put it through its paces in front of the camera now. I've certainly been doing that in my backyard and on a few outings. My favorite way to hold this is using the notch right here to choke up and get my index finger in the finger groove. It's just really balanced, good way to control it. You can hold it back here, there's nothing wrong with that. My preference is just always, it's just, I look down and that's where my hand goes. So I'm going to try to do a push cut on a sapling here through a tension and see how well it does. Now, if you haven't seen my other videos when I do comments on the Laser Strike, look at them at least if you want to see what I've done to the edge. I have ground the V edge out that ESEE puts on it, which is actually very good. I just find this is sharper and more durable. What I mean by that is the convex edge that I've put on it with water stones and stropping. So if you want to see how to do that, Dr. Walko, he goes by Virtue of Ice here on YouTube. He has an outstanding video, so check that out. So I'm going to kind of try to stay in frame here, but this one is thinner. I would say it's just maybe a ½ inch slightly over. And I'm just going to push, I'm just going to arc it, and then try to do a push right through. And these are really, really thick saplings. Push, and you can see it split it, but it did get in there. So, and it went that way too, so. Not sure what kind of trees these are, but fairly resilient. And I'm going to tap it through with kind of a baton here in a minute, so I'll be doing some notching on these. So it did a respectable job. Not bad at all. Move this out of the way here. And now I'm going to come around front here and try to get this one away from the camera here. Way down here under a really tight bend. Hopefully you can still see it. That's better. That's a little bit more fair to the ESEE. I was really not hitting the other sapling at its most tense point. So as you can see, it goes through, and where I'm cutting, you're getting up to about 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches. And it did push through most of it. To get the rest of it, I'm going to have to run a little bit more help with the blade. But compared to the knife, you can see the thickness there. My camera's been doing weird on autofocus, so I'm not going to run it up to the camera, but you can see, hopefully from that angle, that it's fairly thick. I would say here it may be actually a little bit closer to 2 inches, but definitely 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches. So it did good, better when I gave it a little bit more of stress. So push cutting, and not the sharpest that I've ever seen at doing that, but again, this is a very meaty blade, very thick, and you know, it's not going to be able to compete with a 0 ground Scandi, which so far in my opinion has been the best at doing this. I haven't tested a ton of knife, but anyway, so the ESEE is capable of doing it. You might have to give it a little bit of help on the back end, but certainly capable of doing a push through sapling. So, but try to get this under some pressure here, and try to really be fair to the knife. Get down where there's a lot of tension. You just try to push straight through. So it actually did a really good job. It got through half of it on a straight push. Try to put more tension down here, and I'm just wiggling the knife back and forth like a seesaw to see if I can get through it. And it gets through it all but the exterior of the back side. So it's all, as you can see here, a little bit, so I finally got it. And this is fairly thick for this knife. The Scandi edge does really well. You can get this out of these. Sorry about that cut there, but there is a vine way up top, and it kept springing the tree back up on me. But trying to show you from there, I know it's really backlit because of the sun, but this was the best little kind of thick collection of saplings. But I'll show you later how thick this blade is. But you know, it actually did a really admirable job. The blade is very, very sharp. Probably second sharpness only to my Enzo Camper, which is ground to 0. And this is as well, but the bevel's a lot deeper. So very thick sapling. It did a great job. You can see the push cut was straight to this point, then it bent down, and then I did a rock cut like back and forth to get through the rest of it with almost no problem. So admirable job by the Helle GT on push cut through sapling. And of course, if you're doing something more logical, you know, this would be good for some shelter support or whatnot, but you're almost getting into a chopping range here. But something in the 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch range with a really good low tension bend, this should be able to push through it, maybe with a little bit of rocking, no problem. So being able to make stakes for your tent, or you know, any sort of notching at camp all, even if you're just whittling because you're bored, this is going to be able to get something down for you in that manner, no regard. So actually pretty surprised. I thought it was going to struggle a little bit more than that. So there's the push cut on the sapling with the Helle GT. Alright, I'm going to take a look at chopping now. And if you've seen my other videos, you know this is something that I don't normally do, period. When I camp, I typically have a hammock with me. If nothing else, I have a tent. But in a survival situation, you know, God forbid if you were to actually get lost or separated in a storm or what have you, and you had a knife actually that you could rely on, and you were going to be making shelter, maybe like a lean-to style or something like that, and you were looking for a good cross beam between 2 trees, then something like this would be, you know, maybe something that you would look at. I would probably go with something a little bit thinner, maybe kind of like what's going up here at the top. But this is a close-by example of a tree that's in, you know, moderate size, that's not already leaning toward where the camera would be set up. Now, I may not fill completely through this simply because I'm just doing this to see how well the knives do and how well the edge holds up, but we'll just see how it goes. Alright, so this is the ESEE. I'm going to start chopping with it. Alright, first thing I can tell you, I'm not using a lanyard because I try to use it in the simplest form. But the weight of this knife is going to be very good for chopping. It is kind of handle heavy, but this little notch back here, this little rounded bit, actually allows for a pretty decent back end choke up. And so, right now I'm just using my thumb for support at the top. Again, it's a job for an axe, if nothing else, at least a hatchet, but you don't always get to pick your enemy. You know, you may wind up getting stuck, and you know, this is your last resort. Again, a thinner tree would probably be a good idea, but going up against something of a, you know, fairly decent girth here is going to give the knife a challenge, which I don't mind doing for at least one test purpose. So anyway, now to the Helle. This is a very frontward heavy knife. If I put my finger right at basically the hilt right here, it's balanced, but behind it where your finger is, it's very forward heavy. And go this way. The handle's not nearly as comfortable. I'm getting a lot more residual shock, like I'm getting a lot more vibration coming back through this handle because it is so lightweight. It doesn't absorb shock very well, in my opinion. I can choke back up on it. I want to really use the lever of the blade. It's harder to do than on the ESEE because it's so slick, but I can tell you just from this couple minutes, I would not try to fell a tree with a 3.5 give or take inch diameter with this unless I'd had a very healthy breakfast, because this is going to take a while. Alright, welcome back. Sorry about that cut in footage there, but I did not realize that my battery was that low when I started this, and I went through the whole kind of cut and got back there and the screen was black. So I'm going to catch you up real quick on basically what I did. Anyway, as you can see, I didn't get completely through the tree. I kind of ran out of energy, but let me catch you up on kind of what I was saying. The Helle does a good job at the angle cuts when you're coming in at an angle to try to do the top part of your wedge. But when you go to do the cross cut along the bottom down here, it has a harder time getting through the grains. Now this is, you know, fairly tough piece of wood, but and again, as I mentioned, this is not something that most sane people will do with their knives on a regular basis. You would only do this if you had to. And as far as test purposes, I like to see what is a knife going to be capable of doing if I absolutely had to push it. So I got this where it was fairly weak right here along this joint. It was going in the direction I wanted it to. So I did push on it, but the top of the branches got caught in a tree next to me. So I wasn't able to completely push it down. My recommendation would be, obviously, even if you're building a lean-to and stuff, go for a thinner piece of wood that's still going to have a good strength to it, maybe 2 to 3 inches of something maybe in the 3 to 4 inch range. You know, even a green sapling will do a great job of holding up something in a lean-to situation, you know, I would think. But Helle and ESEE both did fine with regard to actually, you know, doing the job. The ESEE was better because it had more heft. The weight of the blade did aid in it, and the ability to get back on that back part of that handle really contributed to performance as well. The Helle did better than I thought it would. Something I would never probably put a Helle through would be something like this, although I just did. But it can do it, but the almost hollow feeling of that curly birch handle, when the blade struck and it came to a resting point in the wood, the vibration really rattled that handle. At least it did for me. And the butt of the handle was resting against my third finger as far as slinging it. So as the forward weight came in, that rattled. You know, it really was uncomfortable. So again, this is merely for me and I guess you guys to see how well it will do. Will they both do this? Yes. Would I subject them to this ever again unless I absolutely had to? Certainly not. But so demonstration purposes for the cutting. There you go. So I'm just going to try to. This is not a heavy enough stick. It was just the nearest thing I could find. But basically, what I want to do, just real quick, after having done more brutal work with, get the ESEE out too, having done more brutal work with the knives, this is after the tree chopping, I'm going to try to see how well I can get both of them to do like notching and stuff like that. Let me try to, just, I'm not left-handed, but that'll go almost all the way through it, so there it goes. I was going to kind of baton the back a little bit, but I don't need to. Set that over here with the Helle. Again, I really like, hopefully I'm in view, I really like this choked up grip on this knife. It's very good, in my opinion, for this. But you can see it's still got a very great edge on it. I mean, that was a tough tree, and I only did the one. But I can shave this pretty much no problem. There's various things that people like to do with their knives in the outdoors. True bushcrafters are very creative. They do lots of various things with their knives that I don't even begin to know how to do. But some of the things that you might want to do are sharpen a stick. This could be used to make a tent stake. If you did a bigger one, split 3 or 4 ways, you can make a hunting spear with it by lodging crossed sticks between and wrapping it in twine. But you know, just being able to take your knife and do a thumb push into it. Now this is green wood, but it's the best way to make a sharpened stick. You could also make kebab skewers with this. And then you could do a 3-sided, 4-sided, or rounded stake. I mean, if you're going to hammer it to the ground real quick, you don't need to do anything spiffy with it. You just need to kind of get it to where it's sharp enough to go in the ground, maybe even pushed by a boot. But just, you know, after a couple seconds, that's fairly good right there. As you see, it shaves the bark no problem. I'm not using these shavings obviously for firewood because this is green. You know, you could use the spine of the knife. I don't know how this coating is going to do. That's not one of the tests I'm actually going to do with this knife just because of time. But like you see, it does, you know, a fairly good job. And then if you wanted to notch in the back end to make some sort of anchor point for it, you could just, you know, do a push cut like that and then rock through this way. Just kind of some notching. I typically like to do this up near the tip, and the straight cuts at the back, more comfortable for me. So as you can see, I'll try to get this up closer. I don't know if it's going to focus or not, but it does a fairly good job. I think you get the idea from even being a little bit further back. I had to widen the zoom on the lens because it was just too specific. I couldn't really tell where my target area is. I'm using my little Nikon V1 camera. It doesn't have a rotating screen, so I'm kind of shooting blind here when I'm doing stuff like this. But in this, where you see the knife getting sort of hung up, is where there was a branch knot before. So very sharp. I've had no problems with this edge, this convex edge that I put on this knife. Very durable, but as you can see, I did a quick notch here, choking back up on it here. You know, it goes through that no problem. And then there's a tent stake. I would actually probably have done a straight notch and a slant up the other way, just for grip, for like a guy line. Kind of go this way and notch like that, so the resistance part is upward. On a thicker one, you could do one on both sides, so you could do a wraparound, but as you can see, it does a great job, and you know, no issues with this at all. So very sharp knife. Now take a look at the Helle. Put it on the ground. Alright, back to the Helle GT, and I've got another piece of that same branch. Again, you saw me kind of chop it earlier. The Helle knives are really insanely sharp, and they come out that way. You know, I'm more used to a convex, so I have to kind of bear with the angle on this a little bit more, but certainly does the job no problem. I mean, you could tell that it's not having any issues with this green wood at all. And again, where you see that hang up is where there's a little knot from a branch. It's not because the knife's not sharp, and it's really sharp, or at least it feels very sharp. So anyway, so I'm going to do just the thumb cut. That's all the way through, and then you could simply do a push that way and a push that way, and you're already getting to a pretty sharp point. This is a 3-sided one. I mean, it's had no problem going straight through that. And this is a steeper, like I mentioned, a steeper Scandi edge versus my Enzo. The grind angle is lower on it, so even though it's I would say this one may be more durable over the long haul. Not really sure yet, but does a very nice job here. You see here. I really do like the Helle blades. As far as, you know, basic woodworking stuff, you know, in camp, I played with this one a lot in the backyard. I would not. Let me see if I can get not as clean a chopper as the ESEE, but that's, again, I always admit it could be more technique than anything else. So anyway, alright, now I'm going to do a notch, like I said, go up on it from this angle and slice into it. Still no problems. This is, for doing tasks like this, the Helle is very, very good. The ESEE, just as this was to me a little bit surprising in the chop test. For finesse work, the ESEE is kind of surprising because you can get in here and do this kind of more subtle stuff. I did this too thin sideways, but you could still see if you push this into the ground, you know, and then tied your guy line around it. Now obviously I would do it on a bigger, thicker branch, but this is the quickest thing I had available. You know, it works very well. Got in a weird angle here. I found this semi-dry piece of wood here, and I'm just trying to do shavings off of it to see how well the knife slices. And it does, if I don't get too deep of a bite, it does fairly well. You can see the shavings coming off or make good fire tinder. This is not supposed to be for a feather stick. I want to see how. As far as this goes, especially getting thinner shavings, the Helle does a very good job. They're consistently thinner. And even up on the belly. Nice job there. You see all these shavings are fairly thin. The ESEE doesn't do a bad job at all. It just doesn't bite the wood quite as much as that Scandi edge does. But you can see I'm taking off admirable shavings. I mean, they're more than useful. They're a little bit thicker, but it still would catch. And then the real telltale is going to be coming into the feather sticking scenario. Start a few coils here, but may end up having to do that back home because I've got to get back and shoot a baseball. They get a little bit going there with a feather stick. The Helle is just insanely sharp, and I don't have to put any leverage even on the ground. Just let the blade shave it. It does a very good job. Again, this isn't a comparison between the two, but between the two, the feather sticking goes to the Helle. This thick Scandi edge, this deep geometry, does a good job at not only biting, but starting to, I guess the thicker the V, it starts to really peel that bark off. And I know this isn't a close-up shot. Hopefully the camera's still running. You can see this side is the Helle, this side is the ESEE, and the ESEE does it. I think, at least currently. There he goes. Just a little bit thicker. Rolls. And when they do roll smaller, they roll a little bit tighter. But just two different edges. I mean, the convex on this is fairly thick. And you see if I just send the blade this way, those are thin enough to catch. I don't have a fire steel with me, nor do I want to do that in my current location. But it does a very good job. That's the ESEE up there. And the Helle, I think the Helle, like I said, has a little bit more bite. And I mean, I'm going to try to do a close-up of this at home, but this does, I mean, it just, once you find the plane, once you find the angle that's comfortable, in fact, the ESEE does a really good job as I transition the blade, almost like a violin, like as I push, make a roll cut like this. You can make really tight spirals with it. This does a good job. It really wants to bite in there. Running out of room here, but I'm trying to get out of a slice and move more of a sort of a push. But anyway, you can see how it skips a little bit more, and that's, again, that's user error. That's me kind of going from two different blades. If I just use the thumb to help it, it's a little bit more contained. And it's actually gentler on this forearm. Again, just changing the technique up a little bit. The blade's more than sharp enough. I'm trying to get this at a weird angle. You can see it's more than sharp enough even at the tip to do these little rolls here. And that's just me giving it more fine tune. But the larger curler earlier, I like to use the knife itself with a free arm. Again, everybody's got a different technique. Same with the Helle. You can, I hope this is close enough. You can see how tight these little rolls are. Just using this push cut, this little thumb lever here, give it a little bit. That's a deeper one, but if I rotate the angle back, it's insanely good. Up here on the bella of the Helle. I'm stupid. But as you can see, I mean, both knives do an outstanding job. I actually may not add to this because, let me try to get up closer here. For demo purposes, hopefully this is autofocusing on here. I don't know if it will, but let me see if I can stand behind the camera. Anyway, here they are. I can't stress this enough. It's mostly technique. I'm not saying I'm wonderful at this, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want to fault the knives. Both did a great job. This is the freehand, just holding the stick, and this is a little stick. There's not a lot of leverage I had. So I was really requiring the blades to do a lot of the work. Here, these more open coils are from the ESEE, because it did kind of bite into it a little bit more. These right here were from the early Helle, sorry, right here. Yeah, right here. So they do curl a little bit more, but as I started, you know, working both of them, kind of getting patient with the blade and letting them kind of feel them out a little bit, they both did a great job. And when at the end, hopefully it did record the little push cut with when I was just aiding the blade with the thumb and just letting the knife really do the work. Both of them did about the same. They both did a great job. Helle, I would say again, I got to stress this too, I'm not trying to compare these two knives, but it's hard not to when you're testing side by side. I would say the Helle is a little bit better at feather sticking in my hands than the ESEE. But you could certainly throw some sparks down on this and get something going. But I'm in the National Forest and I'm not staying camp right now. I'm actually about to head back home and maybe do some follow-up testing. I have to see what's missing from the video. I need to get a buddy to help me do this because doing this alone back and forth is really a challenge. But feather sticks, and again, this is after failing through some saplings, and this is also after chopping on that tree. I haven't tried batoning yet, but both edges still very keen after doing some heavy grunt work. So I'll baton back closer to the house. There's just not a lot of wood that is good for batoning kind of where I'm at, and I'll do that back at the house. So anyway, hope that helps. I'm out here now and I want to take a look at some batoning. Save these two bigger pieces maybe toward the end here. But again, this is a great little platform, so I'm going to just do it here. These pieces are going to range between 1 inch and 2 inches in diameter, and these are down here are going to get up closer to 3. Again, this is going to be the laser strike. Check it on batoning. This wood is a lot thicker than the wood that I did in my last video. So, but these knives are going to take a little bit more force, especially the ESEE. And as you can see, this is a hard wood. This is oak, but got through that no problem. A really clean cut right through there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this again the other way. And since this isn't splitting as bad as the last time, a little closely, I'm going to see if I can tilt the blade back in. Some dead ants in there. Yeah, some dead ants down in there. Actually, they're alive. Down in the middle of this. Very tough wood. And as you can see with the dimensions of the blade, it's going to take up a huge chunk of it. I might go this way because there's already a natural split kind of going this direction. Get it in. I'm going to hit toward the back and then split that no problem. So, you know, great job. By the laser strike, I actually thought it would probably do fairly well. The ESEEs I've worked with, even the little Azula, but the laser strike and the ESEE 4, they're just beaters, man. They almost seem to like a challenge presented to them. And so no problem splitting the wood there. The bigger piece wasn't any more of a challenge than the little piece. Great job by the ESEE. Move this up here. Now let's look at the Helle. Again, the Helle, a little bit more of a delicate design. You know, a stick tang through the middle and a very lightweight handle. Let's see how well it does some batoning here. Let me start, I guess, with this one. Good a choice as any. Kind of an odd shape here, so. It's actually following the curve of the blade. I mean, the curve of the stick. It's kind of an S-curved blade here. If I hold this up, you can see how it's, and the blade just went right along with it. This one again shaped weird, but I'm going to try to hit it on this end and try to split it down and actually see if I can knock part of that leg off there so it's a little bit more even. That's a little bit better. And since there's a kind of a split here, I'm going to try to go this way with it. Hard piece. This may have a nut right here. It's a really tough piece of wood. Here it goes. And this is, woo! This is a big challenge. There we go. That was a really, really tough cut. In fact, the spine took more damage than the blade edge did, which surprises me because this steel, because the grind is so fine on it that sometimes it has a tendency to kind of roll a little bit. I'll show you inside, but if you're looking down at the blade, kind of have a tendency to do this sort of thing. It'll still cut, but on a microscopic level, you kind of have these waves that go down the line, but it did actually get through that. And I didn't do it, obviously, but I think that would have been a nice little challenge even for the ESEE. So, let me go ahead and grab this. Same dimension of that wood earlier. You can see this is about a 5-inch blade, and this is going for the heft of it here. Now this is pine, and it split that, so it does what you need it to do. ESEE's doing exactly what I expected it to do. Just being a brute, heavy work knife, it's ready to go after pretty much anything you throw at. The Helle, you know, what it's turning into to me is you look at it, you want to maybe be a little bit more hesitant. You know, stick tang, you know, a lightweight, you know, birch handle, and a blade with this, you know, scanty grind. I don't know, I just was thinking, you know, it's going to really take a beating. It may break, it may dent, chip, roll, and you know, the edge still feels sharp. Now I know it's taking a toll. There's a little bit of dinging on the top. Actually, I can tell now there's a few little bangs along the top here. I'll show you close up when we get inside that it took from the batoning, and it happened on that heavier piece of wood. So, but it's held up really well. So anyway, I'm gonna take a quick break and try to get the camera closer in here and maybe do a little bit more feather sticking. Alright, going to take a look at some feather sticking now, or more feather sticking. Did do that small bit actually when I was still in the forest, and I actually did a better job than I expected. But I want to take a look at a little bit more now and see what we can get. This is some of the stuff I just split, and then in between segments I split another little piece of dry rounder wood that I just found, and going to take a look at and see how these do. I may start with this stuff first here that I split. I'm going to grab the Helle. And again, I'm not professing to be an expert in technique at all. Typically, I try to keep my arms straight and just do pushes this way. And then sometimes I'll help get the small rolls with my thumb. But just going to go at it and see what we can come up with here and try to get something started. Again, this is oak, so this is a little bit harder wood. I'm actually going to get splinters going that close. But what I found that sometimes doing will work good is get a bite up here and then kind of push down the length of the blade. I don't know if the camera's going to autofocus, but if I do it this way, I can get a nice coil going that direction, especially for the earlier stuff. So I'm going to go up here, and again, I've got to kind of appreciate the angle of the blade because all the grinds on these knives are a little bit different. Get that big piece off there. All these knives are a little bit steep. You know, some of them are steeper, some of them are shallower. Some of them have a shorter edge, and some of them have deeper edge. You got Scandi versus convex. All my knives are Scandi or convex, and so, as is the case with, I'd probably say, most outdoor people, a lot of them, you know, maybe have a hollow ground or something like that. But again, just trying to find the negotiating. These little coils that are slipping off, I could still use as tinder. So they're not lost, especially when I'm at a place where I know they're all being gathered. But what I am trying to do, and this is, cut some of those off here. Sometimes an edge, you know, works really well back here. You can see the coils come off. Typically, I would try to do a slightly softer wood, but this is some of the stuff I just split. So you can see it's kind of rolling this sharp end on the back, no problem. And so I may just stick right back around here. You see there's a deeper one right there. This back part's actually a really good place to do it, turns out, this corner. So in this case, the sharper corners are working well for the feather sticks. Sometimes, you know, I can find it on a rounder surface, they work really well. Again, I'm trying to let the blade do the work and just use my hand as the push, the force, but it takes me sometimes a couple minutes to get used to the angle. I'm going to bring this closer to the camera and see if it's refocusing or if it's stuck. Let me change the focusing type here. And there it goes. And so as you can see, some thicker stuff down this end right here when I started. But when I started really pushing along the back side, stuff's really loose. So this is the Helle. It did a great job. Again, this is oak that I just batoned. And so all kinds of, you know, crooked, crazy angles here. But it did do really well. And so I'm going to change the, hopefully I'm going to change the focus back. There we go. Right, but now that I've got that going, I'm just going to use my thumb to help guide this along thinner. I don't know what kind of wood this is. I wish I knew. It was just laying in kind of a random pile. But it shaves much thinner and much easier than that oak does. So that's good. I'm going to, before I show you those up close, I'm going to lay those two together and I'm going to go back and give the Helle a shot at this. Again, a shorter piece of wood. Haha. The Helle likes this wood. This Scandi edge is making fast work of this. As you can see, it's still very sharp. This Helle is winning the battle as far as fine curls. I mean, the ESEE did no problem at all, but ESEE is a lot thicker edge. I mean, it tapers real quick. It's a very, very steep, very deep angle. But anyway, very good job here by the ESEE. Tighter rolls, slightly a bit thicker, but given that this is a very bendable piece of oak and that the wood's very tough by its nature compared to other woods, I thought it did a very good job. So certainly could get a fire going with that. And this other type of wood I found, again, I don't know what kind it is. I think it was brought over here from a yard. I don't think it was actually, this is where it came down, but it did let me just flip this way. You can see those curls are blowing in the wind. These are very loose, should take a spark real easy. Just for comparison, the top spirals are with the convex edged ESEE. The bottom are with the Scandi ground Helle GT. So both of them do a great job. Not going to have any issues with getting a fire going. All right, as promised, back inside now, and going to take a look at the edges of both knives here in just a second. Want to take a look at each knife kind of individually here. The Helle comes in this pretty nice sheath here. The leather is very soft. It's not very rigid like you'll find like on a Bark River knife, but it's really nice. It's soft. It's got the single snap here. Kind of like I think it's kind of like the sheath you might get on the Futura. I'm not sure. That's still a knife I'm interested in trying out. But here's the knife, and I guess just for comparison purposes, again, just between the two. Here's the ESEE. Very, very similar in length, but this is to give you an idea, not again because this is a comparison, but maybe a lot more people are familiar with the size of the ESEE laser strike. So that's just kind of a visual comparison there. But as you can see, the knife has been put through its paces. All right, wanted to get the knife a little bit closer here. So autofocus, you can see these rub lines and stuff. This is obviously from the batoning and the chopping and stuff that I did. The top of the spine has some marks from the batoning as well, and I did try to throw some sparks with this. It will do it, but it really struggles. It's not nearly as easy as a non-laminated steel would be, at least this Helle's version of triple laminated steel. And then looking at the knife edge here, I'm going to try to see if it'll autofocus. Right in this portion right here, you can see a little bit of a roll. It appears in the edge right along in here. And then back here, this is from trying to throw this one by my finger here. I'm going to get my fingers underneath it so it'll autofocus. Right in here, this indentation is from trying to see if the blade end would throw sparks off of fire steel. But other than that, I mean, it's actually in pretty decent shape considering that it's such a sharp grind. You're not really having any type of issues. Like I said, there's one place back here. And that may have been from a fire steel strike, but I think it actually came in from batoning. It's in this area right in here. You can see one here and then up in there. So, but most of the damage that the knife took on the back side is right here. I try to reduce the reflection. You can see these little things right here, and that's from batoning through that second Y-shaped kind of piece of wood. And then it gives you an idea of the handle up close, and then the tang coming out the back here. It's kind of a rivet to keep it in place. It's a pretty knife in my opinion. I really do like it. You can see Helle Norway right there. It's got the GT logo. I really do like this knife. It's got the ever so slight taper along the top. When I saw the Helle knives listed, I thought this was probably their sexiest looking knife. It's got the most defined belly. It's a big, thick knife. I think it's one of the biggest knives they make. Similar to the Safari, but the Safari's got a longer guard right here. Anyway, that's a look at the Helle, especially up close at the edge. Let's take a look at it now with magazine cutting here. And again, this is edge resharpening, which I plan on doing tonight and finishing this up tomorrow. I can feel those two imperfections on the back of the blade catch a little bit, but and there's some a few more little nicks and dings along here. It's still certainly sharp enough, at least with this magazine. You can see toward the back end here, it doesn't do awesome in every single instance. It does kind of get snagged up a little bit. But that's thinner paper. I can feel the snags pretty good. Let's take a look at some copier paper. So toward the back end, hopefully this shows up, but it pulled that where those little dings are in the edge of the blade. But I'm going to move up a little bit more toward like the midline and the belly. And it does through a little bit hairy. Let me tell you, for any other knife this would be okay, but for Helle, that's just not normal. These frays right here. So it is skipping. I'm going to probably take this through at least the 800 stone and then up through the 3000. I've actually got little hairs of paper stuck along here. So I could definitely see some imperfection. But to be honest with you, having seen the recap of some of the newer videos that Virtua Vice has done on the Helle Futura, even just going up, getting backstraps against the bone of deer and seeing the rolls and chips and dings that laminated steel took, I'm actually fairly impressed with how this held up through that wood beating. And I have been using this some at home. But anyway, I'm actually pretty pleased. Again, for cutting rope and doing more woodwork, this would be fine. But for very fine work and to look at the actual edge keenness, there are some imperfections there. I really do like this knife. The handle's a little bit slippery, but I do like it. The problem is, like I've said before, if I put my finger in the finger groove there, it's very forward heavy. So it's good, maybe you would think, for chopping, but I had some reverberations along there. So that's a general impression of the knife. The spine did take a little bit of a beating because it is a softer steel. But overall, fairly surprised with how well that did. So see how that does after the resharpening. And then move on to the ESEE now. Again, the ESEE comes in a Kydex sheath with this lanyard loop here, and this washer is used to take it's got the slide lock here, which I actually have unlocked. Used to take these pins out here, and if need be, there's a quick tinder and fire stool in there. All right, here is the laser strike. Here's that edge that I put on it. My custom convex edge. Again, especially with the ESEE 4, I after one camping trip of not doing a whole lot of work, I just found that it kind of got a little bit duller than I expected. So I've added this edge to my knives, and it does hold up a lot longer, and it is sharper. You see the handle, it's a lot heavier knife. I'll show you on scale in just a second, but almost nowhere on the back. There's a few signs of dings right here where the metal itself isn't really bent at all, but the paint, or this coating, is chipped off a little bit in batoning. And you can see along the side there's these rub lines. The actual coating hasn't been really removed, but you could see where it's been batoned and chopped through wood. Overall, on the blade edge down here, I did try to throw some sparks with the blade of the steel, because the one drawback of this blade is that it will not throw sparks any other way than with the blade edge. But if you use a scraper that comes with your fire starter, you're not going to be in any problems there. But in an emergency situation, especially since this has a tinder and fire steel in the handle, it would be nice if there was another way to throw sparks than with the blade edge. But overall, you can kind of see this blade's in pretty good shape. There's some rub line stuff down there. I'm not going to rub it along my finger, but it's fairly sharp, and it doesn't show quite as much signs of wear overall, or as significant signs of wear as the Helle, but there are some markings down here. But overall, this is a lot more brute of a knife, and it's going to hold up better in those heavier tasks, as I mentioned. So give you an idea of what these things weigh in at. I'll flip this around here. This is set up to ounces. So I'm going to go ahead and put the ESEE on there and see. This is 9.3 ounces with the survivor tyndall and stuff in the handle. So 9.3 in the sheath on this. Sorry about that. Comes in at 4.8. So the sheath is half the weight of the knife. And obviously the two together there, going to be a meatier package than most. You're getting up 14 ounces, so you're running up close to 16 ounces there on that. So it's not terrible, but it is a heftier blade for sure. Take a look now at the Helle. Let's go ahead and do it in its case. Helle with case is only just shy of 7 ounces, and so the blade itself 5 ounces even. So the ESEE, again, not a comparison, but I do this simply because a lot of people are really familiar with the ESEEs, their weightiness. The laser strike is almost exactly double, at 9.2, 9.3 ounces, so about 0.7 ounces shy of being double the weight of the Helle, even though the blade lengths are in a similar dimension. So there you have those two side by side again. Kind of give you an idea of what they look like, just to familiarize yourself with them, that's all. And now I'm going to do a quick cut test with the ESEE. It's a sharp convex for sure, but it gets it's kind of steep based off this flat grind down to convex. It's not nearly as fine, but when I have paper with a little bit more substance to it, it doesn't hold up as badly. So very similar, a little bit more resistance I feel in this paper than with the GT. And last cut here, regular paper test. The back doesn't want to bite at all. Move up a little bit. You can see not doing too well at all here. Let me move it more towards the belly. Not as sharp as it should be. So definitely got some bite there. Could still do some camp tasks and things like that, but for real fine edge, it did take some imperfections. And of course, we're talking about brutalizing some trees and some hardwood. So definitely not what I expect from my knives. So I'll recondition these edges tonight, and tomorrow I'll wrap this puppy up for everybody. See how they cut. All right, last segment, finally there, guys. Going to take a look at each of these now after the edges have been reconditioned. Tell you a little bit about the process I did on each. Starting with the Helle GT. We'll talk now about sharpness. This did have some rolls, as I showed you down here near the blade edge, but those are completely gone now. Had to spend a little bit of time on the 800. I didn't want to, I think it was 400. Actually, I'm sorry. And then finished it up on the 2000, and then took it through black and white Bark River compound, as is my usual method. It took a little bit of time to get those out. Wanted to make sure they were completely out of the blade edge there. And then I went back, and when I got this from the factory, I know these are hand kind of buffed and stuff by the folks at Helle, but I did want to try to get out some of these. I don't know if they were buff marks or what. There's some inconsistencies up toward the tip, right around at the front of the belly line up here on this sweep up here, and I went ahead and spent a little bit extra time reconditioning to kind of get the edge as good as I could really do it. So we'll take a look now at paper cut with magazine, and as you can see, compared to before, it is extremely sharp. We'll get up here on the belly even some more. Bad angle on that. Let me get through that way. It's sharp all the way around. It's completely continuous. I will say that these knives reconditioned very well. It did take some little chips and some rolls and stuff, but they are easily restored. It did take a little bit of time on the stones, but again, I put this through a lot more than I would put a standard knife through. Again, I want to see kind of what its limit is with regard to how I would ever use it, but it's a very sharp knife. Not the blade, it's extremely sharp. Here's some photocopy paper. No problems at all with that. Curved cuts, no hang-ups at all. Start the cut and just pull the paper against it. It's a very, very sharp knife. I really do like the Helles. Now, if I knew I was going to, just with my outdoor knife, going to do a lot of batoning, what I mean by if I, in that situation, if I were the owner of a knife and I were going to do a lot of batoning with it, which I do use mine at campsites and stuff, would be cautious that this coated laminated steel, I don't know if it's 18/8 or what they say it is, but it is soft, and it will take some bending and some dimples from the baton itself. And these, you could probably file that down on the backside if you want to. I'm not really sure it's worth it. But the soft steel will take some baton damage. It's very difficult to throw a good spark with these in my practice. I've heard that from others as well. Fire steels aren't at strong point. Batoning, it suffers a little bit on the spine. But other than that, for feather sticking and slicing and anything like that, the Helle knives are extremely good. And the edge was fairly easy to recondition, especially if you're not trying to scrape and throw sparks with it. It would have been much easier. I did try to do that down here, and so I did pay for it on the stone a little bit. But overall, great knife. I really like the Helle. Again, forward heavy, lightweight handle. Not going to be for everybody, but anyway, there's a look at it. And now take a look at the laser strike. This one I actually reprofiled a little bit beyond what was necessary. There was some marks down here again from trying to use this for fire steel, maybe a little bit from batoning, but I went ahead and decided to raise the line a little bit here, and and make the angle shallower so it would be a little bit sharper. So a little bit more of this coating was removed as compared to before, but it's much sharper than it was even before I tested it. And go ahead and see how it does. I mean, it's resistance-wise, it's about the same as the Helle, which for those of you who are in the know this is very sharp. So obviously the knife doesn't come with this edge, but it's capable of holding a very, very sharp edge. So if you are one of those people that likes to recondition your blades, you know, get rid of the V-edges or whatever that come on them and put on your own, you know, convex grind or whatever, it will take it very well. Again, just copy paper. Now you remember before, this would barely get into it and just start ripping, but it's extremely sharp. And this did take some time to do, again, because I reprofiled it beyond what was necessary to get it sharp, because I wanted the edge shallower. So anyway, no problems there. I mean, because you can see it's sharp. There you go, that's a better example. But you know, you guys are used to ESEEs out there, the ones that those of you who know that these suckers are really heavy, and the blade edges on them are fairly fat. So I've tried to get this even shallower. But for a knife this size, that is capable of doing the kind of work that this one is, this is very, very sharp, and it's definitely sharper now than when I started it. So there's a look. Again, wasn't supposed to start off as a side-by-side comparison. It just turned out that way for video editing purposes. It turned out to be easier just to kind of do them while I had them both. And there you go. Stay tuned. If you enjoyed the videos, please subscribe, and look forward to see you guys again. God bless.